All right, we're doing the Matthew Berry challenge. Last year we won 12-2, totally kicked his ass. We're gonna do the same thing this year and every single year that follows. Hopefully, it's gonna be tough to repeat that performance, but I'm confident we can do it or get close to it. Herrick is here as the official referee, so he's here for both recordings today and then right after the season. Herrick, do you think we can do it again?
I think there will be a victory, but okay, whether the 12-2 score can be replicated, I think that is the bigger question for this year. Because 12-2, that's a pretty high standard there.
Yeah, and now if I am able to replicate it again, I don't want to hear anything the rest of my life. Like if I'm able to do it back-to-back years, I just don't want to hear it again. So that's the goal, and I have a list. And again, just to remind people at home, I'm not cherry picking his list. I'm not picking whatever I want. I'm only going off of his love-hate column. So if he feels really confident about something, that's when I chime in. I'm not just cherry picking whatever I want. Like a perfect example, I don't know, James Cook. Like I love James Cook, but James Cook is also on his love list. So I'm not going to say, oh, well, he's ranked a couple spots lower than I have him, so I'll do that. No, it's only if he loves him and I hate him. It has to be the total opposite pick. So that's the goal and plan for the series, and we'll try to see if we can win here again.
Yeah, I believe a good example of that is DeAndre Swift from last year.
Yeah.
Where he was low on him, you were high on him, outperforms expectations by a decent margin. So I believe that would be a strong example there. So
yeah,
what we're looking for.
I'm only doing his most confident picks, not cherry picking whatever I want. I think that's a key example. And the fact that I went 12-2 on his most confident picks says a lot. So I think we're going to do it again. And I got 14, 15 names on the list here, so we can get started.
Yep. You want me to pull up his article?
Yeah, I think that would probably be the easiest way to do it. So a couple honorable mentions that I thought about doing for his quarterback list. He's got Kyler Murray up top. He's got Anthony Richardson up top. He's got Jaden Daniels up top. I really thought about just fading all of them, but I'm going to leave them all alone. Just because, look, the rushing total should be there for all of them. I think Jaden Daniels, it's possible that he has an RG3-like trajectory where he comes out of the gate hot and he runs a lot and then he takes a couple hits and then he's not quite the same. So if he finishes at QB10, like I wouldn't totally be surprised, but I probably wouldn't rank him that high. Same thing with Richardson. Like if Richardson has the Jalen Hurts year, like I wouldn't totally be shocked. He has Steichen as his play caller. Like it would make some sense, but I mean, the guy, he still has an over 60% completion. So like, and he's hurt all the time. So I wouldn't rank him QB6, but I don't think it's impossible that he finishes as QB6. So those running quarterbacks, we're just going to leave them alone.
Mm-hmm. I feel like with any rushing quarterback, they just get tossed in the top 10.
Yeah.
And then when they get hurt, they just pretend like it's not their fault, even though it was an inherent risk.
Which we got Richardson right last year.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then if they don't get hurt and they have, a bunch of rushing touchdowns, a bunch of rushing yards, then they act like they're geniuses. And when they're really just playing, high risk, high reward, and only accepting when they come out on the positive end of the spectrum.
So we're going to leave the rushing quarterbacks alone just because there's certainly a chance that it happens, certainly a chance that it doesn't. So we're just going to leave those alone. First name on the list that we're going to start with here is Kirk Cousins. I'm fading Kirk Cousins in every platform, and I know I think he has him as, let me pull that up. He's got him as QB17, I believe, or QB15. So I'll take the over on QB15. I'll take the over on QB15. I don't know where you stand on this, but I think a lot of this Falcons thing is like a new car smell. Like they always fall for the new car smell. Just because the guy changed their team, they like to get excited about the guy, which is why I was anti-Rodgers last year. I said, dude, his offensive line's really bad and he gives you no rushing. Like, we're sure this is going to work right away. And now I like Rodgers heading into year 2, but now everyone's off of Rodgers. I think it's kind of the same thing here with Cousins. He's coming off the torn Achilles. He gives you zero rushing. Like we talked about all those rushing quarterbacks. I should pull that up. I believe he had 75 rushing yards total last year in 8 games, which is really bad. Like, he gives you 0 rushing. And not only that, like, Justin Jefferson's kind of like quarterback proof. Like, Justin Jefferson's going to get 100 yards a game on his own. He don't got Justin Jefferson anymore. Like, there is no Justin Jefferson. And I'd make the argument that Jordan Addison is better than any weapon that he now has too. So I would fade Cousins. I would put him outside my top 20 in terms of fantasy. He's got him as quarterback 15. So I'll take the over on Cousins.
Yeah, and just to add on that, there's the risk of the aging quarterback who's coming off a torn Achilles. That in itself. But not only is he leaving Jefferson, he's also leaving the Vikings offense, which they throw the ball
a fuck ton,
a ridiculous amount, and he's throwing to Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson. So now he's probably going to have less passing attempts with worse weapons after an Achilles
and a worse coach. Like, he's basically taking O'Connell's assistant. And last 4 weeks of the year, the Vikings threw the ball 69% of the time. Like, all year we complained about how, wow, they're not running the ball. Like, Madison has 10 carries for 15 yards. Everyone that drafted Madison got fucked. So,
yeah. And there were weeks in there where you were getting productive fantasy weeks out of Josh Dobbs. It's not like it was every week, but that offense, I don't want to say you can just throw anybody out there and they'll score you fantasy points, because that's not true. But the quarterbacks, I believe, in that offense can overperform from a fantasy perspective.
That video's out. I have Darnold on the OnlyFans list for that reason. I think he's being ranked like quarterback 30 or something. Like, it's not going to be very hard for Darnold to outscore quarterback 30 with just having Jefferson alone.
Yeah.
So
how he is a Darnold and Jefferson stack. Like, if you get Jefferson, like, why not? Why would that not want? Why would you not want Darnold? And
nobody wants Darnold. You could probably in any league you're in, he's basically free, whether it's snake or auction. I mean, $5 will probably get you Darnold at high end scenario. So I would fade Cousins. I think in my league he went for $35 this year. That's just too high for me. And this is in the article, but like, everyone fell for Russell Wilson when he got traded. Everyone fell for Matt Ryan when he got traded. Like, the history of these quarterbacks that change teams, like, there almost is no success. Like, it's Favre 1 year with the Vikings. It's Peyton Manning for 1 year with the Broncos. It's Tom Brady with the Bucks. And that's like the end of the list. Like, I'm just not putting Cousins in that category.
Yeah. It'd be ridiculous to do that. And once again, he's coming off an Achilles injury, which is like the worst possible injury to have. For
36 years old. Like, not everybody's Tom Brady. Not everybody's playing until they're like 800 years old. Most of the quarterbacks, they usually fall off a cliff, and it's already happened to Russell Wilson. So,
and most of the time, you find out there's a reason the team that let him walk. The Vikings just didn't let him walk for no reason. They were willing to give him big money in the past.
And by the way, that came straight from ownership. Like, ownership said, we're not doing this anymore. Like, we don't want to be in jail. So, and that's a perfect example to another guy on my list that we'll get to later. But yeah, I'm very worried. Like, here's the other craziest part about the Cousins thing. Do they draft Penix if they're not 1% worried? Like, do they pick Penix if they're like, Cousins is the guy, we got nothing to worry about, he's going to lead us to the Super Bowl? Like, if they're not 1% nervous about Cousins, do they pick Penix? Which goes down the further rabbit hole of they literally didn't play Penix in the preseason. Like, what? Like, they said they're good and they don't need to see him anymore. Like, does that mean we actually might see Penix on the field this year? Because if you told me Penix plays this year, I'm not going to say that's impossible just based on the way they're acting.
Not playing him in the preseason is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if this...
Because he's not going to get reps all year. So why wouldn't you want to see him now?
Yeah.
Unless they think he might get reps this year.
Yeah. The only problem that I have with that is that I think this new Falcons regime may just be that stupid. Like, there is that chance. Well, there's that where he doesn't play the whole year and then
But I also think there's a chance. What happens if Cousins is off to a slow start and 8 weeks through the year they're 2-6? Like, I don't think that's impossible. We're talking about a team that went 7-10, 7-10, 7-10, 3 straight years. Is Cousins really going to fix all those problems? Because they didn't add anything on defense other than Matthew Judon. And then their entire offseason was Cousins and Penix, and they had the worst draft I've ever seen. So this isn't a team that even got better, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like for them, they're banking a lot on getting more out of Bijan, getting more out of London, getting more out of Pitts. Like, a lot of their, like, improvements come from, like, actual players on the team improving rather than – but the opposite side of that coin is we didn't add any pieces around them.
No.
Like, we didn't make the offensive
line. Worst
line.
Offensive line, too.
Yeah.
Better offensive line in Minnesota.
Yeah. Yep. But – like, if you were really like, we need Bijan to take a step if we want to be any better, you'd think they'd add, like, an offensive lineman or two. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's just very puzzling, like, the way they approached.
Like, I think their only thing they got going for them is they play in the NFC South, which certainly helps. Helps. But I also think there's a chance they get off to a slow start and they're like, oh, maybe Penix should just go in. And if that happens, then you really fucked if you picked him. Which I don't think is impossible. I don't think you can rule out anything with this Falcons team.
I think that just purely based on how much every single time they have openly spoke about Penix.
Yeah.
And even their actions, not playing him in the preseason, drafting him in the top 10 after you signed a quarterback. So not even their words, but also their actions with what they do with Penix. I mean, they clearly love this guy.
Yeah.
Love.
And to rank him QB 15, like, that assumes so he gives you no rushing. Like, for him to be QB 15, he's got to throw for like 35 touchdowns to even get close to QB 15 because there's no rushing.
Yeah, and for perspective, here's the way that these rankings look. It's Lawrence at 14, so he's right there with Lawrence. And then it's Cousins 15. Then you go Goff, Tua, Stafford, Herbert, Watson, Rodgers.
Like, I would just rather, like, if you're telling me I can have Aaron Rodgers for like $20 less, I'll do that. And those two guys are similar in the fact that they're not going to get any rushing, but you're going to need like 35 touchdowns to make it worth your while. If you're giving me an option for who's more likely to do that, I'd pick Rodgers.
Mm-hmm. And as crazy as it is to say, the Jets probably have a better offensive line than they actually went out there and were like, we need to make the offensive line.
Tyrone Smith, Morgan Moses, they draft Fashanu, which is why I like Rodgers now. I didn't like him last year. And I think Garrett Wilson is better than anything the Falcons have to throw the ball to. And I think Breece Hall is better than Bijan too. So
yeah, and same price point you can have Herbert. It's like there's a lot of other options at QB 15 that you could go with rather than Cousins.
All right, next one on the list, and this one I'm actually internally slightly nervous about, but I feel like just for doing the right thing, I feel like I have to just do it. We'll go with Tua as the next guy on the list. So he has Tua on his hate list. Tua is not on my OnlyFans list, but to have him as QB 17 and then his first line is "Call me Brian Flores," I have to just add him to the list. Like, this
is faith in good karma on this one.
Yeah, this is exactly this is 100% a karma play. If he's gonna say "Call me Brian Flores," we'll go with the opposite angle. And I had Tua last year. I loved Tua last year. I thought, oh, Mike McDaniel, he should be healthy this year. It looks like he was taking jiu-jitsu classes. It looked like he actually packed on some muscle, and he had a great year last year. QB 17 feels really low. And this is why I don't have Tua on my OnlyFans list, is because his last couple weeks of the year, like during the fantasy playoffs, he goes on the road to Cleveland, on the road to the Jets. Like, he's got a really tough schedule late in the year, and he's a guy that, you know, not overly big, not the biggest arm in the world, much better in warmer weather, just like Goff. You're a Lions fan. Goff is not the same in these harsh conditions. Same can be said for Tua. So I get why, hey, I don't have him on the list just because I think some of his schedule down the second half of the year is really, really rough. But if you're going to say you're Brian Flores, we'll take the opposite angle.
Yeah, and as far as projecting like season-long totals go, like Tua is a guy who, especially early in the year, can lead you to a lot of wins.
Oh, yeah.
When he's at home, throwing to Tyreek, throwing to Waddle, screens to A-Chain. Like, there's a lot of, like, routes for him to really rack up points early in the year. It's not ideal from, like, a scheduling perspective, like you said, but as far as projecting overall, where does this guy finish? 1 through 32? Like, there's a very clear path to hit for him to get higher than QB 17.
Well, he was basically a top 10 fantasy quarterback last year.
Yeah.
And if he just does what he did last year, he's there. By the way, we're talking about a guy that threw 69%, led the NFL in passing yards, and he only had 29 passing touchdowns. Mostert had 18 rushing touchdowns. Like, I don't think it's impossible that Tua picks up a couple more touchdowns here either. Like, is Mostert going to have 18 rushing touchdowns again?
Yeah, exactly. That screams regression. That screams these 18 touchdowns. Maybe he goes and gets 12.
And by the way, they had 27 rushing touchdowns last year, and Tua didn't have any of them. Yeah. So what's the chance he picks up 1 or 2? What's the chance that even 1 or 2 of those touchdowns turn into Tua scores? So I'll take him. I'll take the under on the QB 17 line.
Yeah, QB 17 in a highly productive offense with
Tyreek Hill. I haven't mentioned Tyreek Hill once, who is probably the best receiver in football. Jalen Waddle still there. Achane should take a step forward too. Jonnu Smith, that should be a tight end upgrade, which they didn't really have last year. I don't know. And again, I'm more nervous about Tua than I was last year, but at QB 17, we'll take that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
This guy can't get any fucking respect as Tua. It's unbelievable. Can't get any fucking respect. Led the NFL in passing yards, but he still sucks, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Next guy we're gonna do on the list is Justin Herbert, and I believe he's got him as QB. Yeah, QB 19. We'll take the under on that. So this is the argument that I can't really wrap my brain around when it comes to this Charger stuff. So the fantasy experts, they all say the same thing. Well, here comes Jim Harbaugh and here comes Greg Roman, but nobody then likes Gus Edwards. Like, that's the thing I don't quite understand. So nobody's going to score in the Chargers? Like, so you're going to downgrade Herbert because he's got Harbaugh and Greg Roman. Okay. If that's your argument, I understand. But then why is Gus Edwards not higher on the list? Like that's what doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to pull up Gus Edwards' ranking. Because, like, if you're down on Herbert because you think they're going to run the ball a lot, okay. I understand.
But nobody's taking any of the running. None of them. Not Gus. Not J.K. Dobbins.
He's got Gus Edwards as RB 37. Well, that means they're just going to suck. Like, you're projecting this team to totally suck. You're a Michigan fan, and I think you understand this. Like, Harbaugh's ain't going to make this team worse. No. Under no scenario is this team going to be worse with Harbaugh instead of Brandon Staley. Like, my argument here is coaching matters a lot. This guy got Colin Kaepernick to be fantasy relevant. This guy got Alex Smith to be fantasy relevant. If my line here, and the Yahoo ranking is the exact same, if my line here is for Herbert to beat QB 19, we'll take our odds there.
Yeah. And one thing I think a lot of people have confused with Harbaugh in LA, will they run the ball? Yeah, they're going to run the ball.
Yeah, they're going to run.
No doubt.
Sure.
But I think a lot of people are expecting it to look like the Michigan offense, which is not really the way it's the NFL. Jim Harbaugh did that at Michigan because they could.
And it was the Big Ten. You know, winning games in the Big Ten to beat Iowa is a lot different.
Exactly. And Jim Harbaugh, I'm pretty sure, knows that. It's not like he doesn't know what he's getting himself into. He knows they're going to have to throw more. and it's Justin Herbert. It's not like we're dealing with, you know, a guy with the weak arm that can't do anything. It's like, this is a big guy with rushing ability, with a massive arm. It's like, it's crazy. And another thing is what a lot of people, I don't think, understood about Michigan last year is everyone loved to say, oh, their offensive line is great. It's great. It's great.
Horrible.
The offensive line really wasn't that good.
No. You
had 5 guys who Zinter was the best guy out of the group. I like Zinter probably more than other people, but he got injured as well. He broke his leg. But you had 5 guys who were much better run blockers than pass blockers. If you watch
your left tackle was a big problem.
Yeah. If you watch either of the tackles in pass protection, they were getting beat like a drum. So that's why they didn't throw the ball that much. Not because they didn't want to throw the ball. They couldn't protect the quarterback. And I think when you're looking at this team this year, now they've got Slater and Alt at the tackles.
Yeah.
Like, we can't throw the ball. It's like, we've got pass protection.
And Zion Johnson. And, you know, like, this line isn't bad.
Yeah, exactly. So they're going to have protection. McConkey is good.
Yeah, like they draft McConkey. If they wanted to run the ball the whole time, like, they're not taking a slot receiver.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're talking about a quarterback. His rookie year, 31 passing touchdowns. His second year, 38 passing touchdowns. Like, a lot of this is Brandon Staley is the worst coach we've ever seen. So, yeah, of course he was going to fall off a little bit of a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
If you're giving me Herbert at quarterback 19, I'll take that. And there is rushing upside here. Like, he'll probably run for 250 yards, 350 yards, and a couple touchdowns, which Cousins isn't going to get you. So if you're telling me, like, Cousins is basically going to have to throw for, like, 7 to 10 more passing touchdowns than Herbert for him to get, like, for Cousins to win, he's going to have to throw 7 to 10 more passing touchdowns because he's going to lose the rushing battle to Herbert. So, yeah, I'll take the under in quarterback 19 for Herbert. I think there's a chance he's a top 10 quarterback, and I don't think there's any problem he'll be top 15 as long as he's healthy.
Yep, I agree.
All right, next on the list, we're moving to the running backs now, and we're gonna go with Joe Mixon here. Like, use that line with, hey, maybe the Vikings moved on for a reason. Maybe the Bengals moved on here for a reason. I don't know how you feel about this. I watched Joe Mixon, and Joe Mixon actually finished pretty high in terms of fantasy last year. I'm not sure he's got anything left. Like, I just don't think he's got anything left. And a lot of this, hey, new car smell. He's in a good offense. Well, he was in a good offense last year too. I just think the Bengals moved on here for a reason. They went with a younger option in Zach Moss. Like, 5 years ago, you're not moving on from Mixon to go to Zach Moss. Now, hey, they're going with the younger running back. Now, this is a team, Houston. Houston finished 30th in the league in rushing last year. They finished 30th in the league in rushing last year. They're now asking Mixon to go save them. And I think he actually has more competition in the backfield than he did last year. Like, last year, all he had to deal with was rookie Chase Brown, who wasn't ready to play, and he had one screen pass and did nothing the rest of the year. This year, he's got, I'm not the biggest Dameon Pierce guy in the world, but I think Dameon Pierce and Cam Akers combination is more than he had to deal with last year. And it's Stroud. You got Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins. There's a lot of mouths to feed here. So I'm really nervous that Mixon has enough left in the tank to finish his RB12 here.
Yeah, and it's also like, not only is Dameon Pierce one of the guys he's competing with, but does Dameon Pierce not scream guy who's going to snipe touchdowns?
Could. Very well could.
Like, he seems like a guy where, you know, Mixon's been on the field for a while. We get to the red zone. We plug Dameon Pierce in. He's going to be the guy that we lean to a little bit more on the goal line. Like, I feel like that's at least a strong possibility here. And yeah, like you said, a lot of mouths to feed, and with CJ Stroud and the receiving core they put together, like, I think they're going to be throwing the ball a decent amount this year.
Whether it be RB12 or RB13, like, my best case scenario feels like like I'm drafting him at his ceiling, basically. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
Like there's a chance he gets hurt. There's a chance he's old now and doesn't have anything left. There's a chance that, hey, one of these other running backs gets featured in here because, you know, giving Joe Mixon 250 carries now at this stage of his career isn't feasible. So this is a team that threw the ball a ton. I don't know. Running back 12, that just seems really rich for my taste. And not to mention the fact that Dalvin Cook was in his same draft class. Dalvin Cook just, you know, magically fell off the face of the earth one day. Like, I don't see why that couldn't happen to Mixon here.
Yeah. I feel like the fall off age for running backs is going to differ for every single player. It's never going to be the exact same age, obviously. But 28, like he's 28. To me, 28's a number where you start to look at it with a little bit of a, I don't like. Yeah. If you when I start to see 28, and you're talking about a fantasy perspective, or even just a real football perspective in team building, when you start to look at the 28-year-old running back, you're kind of like, oh man, like you're kind of just like waiting at this point,
right?
Like
it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time. So I'm never gonna be against fading 28-year-old running backs who, like you said, I don't think he was as good last year as he had been the years previous. Switching teams to a team last year that everyone thought it was going to be Dameon Pierce, and they go out there with Singletary. So it's not like this is even a team that I wouldn't even necessarily trust them with the running back based on how they handled the backfield last year. They could switch it up on you again. I don't think this is necessarily going to be a team that's predictable in how they throw their running backs out.
We're also talking a back here that hasn't been super efficient over the last couple of years. Like he's already not efficient. So what happens if he actually did lose a step? 2020, 3.6 yards per carry. 2021, 4.1. 2022, 3.9. 2023, 4.0. Like he's really never been a guy that's going to give you 4.5 yards a carry. Like never. So if he actually does lose a step and he turns into a guy that's averaging 3.8, 3.6, something like that, I'd be very worried that I picked him as RB12 or RB13, whichever one you want to use. The rankings are about the same. I would take the over on that.
I agree. What you said earlier about when you're drafting him at 12, it feels like you're drafting him at his peak.
Yeah,
that is a great way to look at that, in my opinion. If he gets RB12, I feel like, and you draft him at RB12 or 13, whatever number, like I feel like you got to feel like you got away with one a little bit.
Yeah. Next up on the list, we're going with Kamara. He's got Kamara at RB16. It's his honorable mention, I think, a little bit below.
Yeah.
I think you got to keep going down. Yeah, it's the other receiving votes. I got the ranking here. He's got him as RB16. I just think that's like a little too rich for me. And this is the same draft class as Mixon. We saw Cook fall off the face of the earth. I've told this story in the past, but I just think it's absolutely true. Or was true for me, at least. My second year in college, I got suspended the first half of the year. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like, I was fresh and ready to go. I kicked everybody's ass for like 2 weeks straight. I never felt healthier in my life. Like, I don't think people understand that, like, Kamara getting suspended, he came out like a firecracker the first 4 weeks after he was suspended. Like, he came out and I think 1 week he had like 20 receptions. Like, he was out of his mind the first 4 weeks of the year. And then once the season started to pick up and the wear and tear starts going, he fell off. Now, going back, he's ready to go week 1. And he's dealing with a back injury. But more than that, like, I wrote this article too. Maybe we can link it in somewhere. But the Saints are the credit card team of the NFL. Like, they constantly borrow tomorrow's money for today. Constantly. The only guy on their team they haven't redone their contract with is Kamara. Like, they redid Michael Thomas. They redid Derek Carr. They've redone Taysom Hill about 16 times. They won't touch Kamara's contract. This is basically his final year in the team. They have not touched Kamara's contract, and they do everybody else. To me, that would make me really, really nervous. And I think there's a chance that Kendre Miller eats into this a little bit. He doesn't even really need He really doesn't need to eat into it. He just needs to do what Jamal Williams couldn't last year, which is be something. So I would fade Kamara. I just think that's too high. RB16. Maybe it's different if you play in a PPR league. I should stress that too. Like if you're in a PPR league and the receptions, I kind of get it a little bit more. But for the formats that we play, the regular standard format, there's no way. And I think Yahoo Scoring has half point PPR, so they're not even going off a full point PPR anyway. So I just think running back 16 is a little like maybe, but I think same thing with Mixon. If he has a good year, RB16 feels about right. But I think there's a lot of things that could go wrong here.
Yeah, I want to say this. I love Alvin Kamara.
We didn't use Kamara last year either, and Kamara was on his hate list, which we actually should have went with the love on Kamara last year, but we didn't.
Yeah, and I love Kamara. I had him in our site league last year. Like historically, even in like my casual league with friends, I always have gotten in arguments about how the hell can I get Kamara off your team onto my team. Like I've really liked Kamara throughout his career, but we just talked about Joe Mixon at 28, and now we're going Kamara at 29, and his game depends a lot more on speed, quickness, shiftiness.
Needs his receptions too. He's never been a good inside runner, and their offensive line is not good.
Yeah. I feel like Kamara is the type of guy who, when it goes, it's like we talk about fall offs for running backs. One day, Kamara is going to go from where he's at now to absolute dust.
Yeah.
Like one day, it's just going to be we hit him on that screen, or we hit him on that short route, and he just doesn't make a guy miss, and it's 3 yards, and then it's 2 yards, and then it's like we're just not moving the ball here. It's swinging it out to Kamara. Like there's a lot of ways this can go bad for him.
And I hate this offense, by the way. Like,
yeah.
I don't want anything to do with Dennis Allen. Like, if this is a team that I can avoid, I'm all good with. The one rare exception would be like Shaheed, if like wide receiver, wherever the fuck he's ranked, like wide receiver 50 or wherever he's at. Like, if you want to spend $1 on Shaheed, maybe. But I don't really want anything to do with the Saints team.
Yeah, I've been having similar struggles with Chris Olave.
Yeah.
Like, and if I'm having struggles about what I'm going to do with Chris Olave, how can you not have struggles about what you're going to do with Alvin Kamara, considering the offense and the play calling and all that? So, I as much as I love Kamara, the over is like something bad is bound to happen here relatively soon. So, I feel like over is just the way you have to go.
And I'm actually more surprised they haven't looked at his contract, because I actually think this is a player they really like, or thought that they really like. Like, of all the guys you're not going to touch their contract, it's this one. And he's been dealing with a back injury in camp. He's missed a ton of time, which Kendra Miller has missed a ton of time too. But I'd be really nervous about investing heavy resources here.
Yeah, I feel like your only option, if you can get him cheap and hope, like,
yeah.
But if you have to invest at the price,
and a PPR league is much different than a normal league where, hey, if he's picking up, I think he had 70 targets last year. Like, if he's picking up 40, 50 receptions, I get it a little bit more if that's the league format you play. I hate PPR leagues. I'll never understand people that like those. But if you're just in a normal fantasy league, like, and he's never been a guy that's going to score a ton of touchdowns. Like, he had that one Christmas game where he scored like a year's worth of touchdowns. But other than that, he's never been a guy that's racking up a ton of touchdowns either.
I don't know if this is a fair comparison or not, but after what we just saw happen to Austin Eckler, like base dive he took as the primary receiving back, I feels like something very similar could happen here.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a great comparison. And let's go. I just want to put this up. Last year, he had 5 rushing touchdowns. Year before, he had 2. Year before that, he had 4. And then 2020, he had 16. Like, I just think that the guy that scored 16 in 2020, he's gone. Like, that guy's not coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which, if you're drafting him RB16, you hope that season comes. But I don't see that.
Yeah, and running backs in the RB16 area, people, when they get to that third round, fourth round in their casual snake drafts and they don't know who to draft at the running back because it's such a thin position, it's always the older guy that you used to trust is the one that gets you every single time.
Like in that range, I like James Cook. I like Josh Jacobs to have a little bit of a rebound year. I like Kenneth Walker. I like a couple other options in that area.
Yep, I would agree with you.
Okay, next up on the list, we're going to do Jonathon Brooks. So I guess we can figure this out beforehand or however you think is best. If you want to do average points per game or total fantasy points for Jonathon Brooks, maybe it can be a half point for each. I don't know. I just think it's totally fucking insane that. So it used to be Jonathon Brooks and Nick Chubb cost the same. That's not even the case anymore. Now Jonathon Brooks is significantly more expensive than Nick Chubb, who both are on the PUP list to start the year. If you're going to tell me a rookie running back that, couldn't beat out Roschon Johnson is going to outperform Nick Chubb, I don't quite get it. And we're talking about Dave Canales takes over. And I guess Dave Canales is a fucking genius. I just don't really understand that. Dave Canales in 2023, Tampa Bay, 32nd in the league in rushing. Dave Canales, 2022, Tampa Bay, 32nd in the league in rushing. Like, he's had the worst rushing offense in the league back-to-back years. Why would I think that's going to get better now that he's in Carolina? Like, I think he might help Bryce Young. I'm not disputing that. I think Bryce Young should look better this year. But man, Jonathon Brooks, like, you're going to tell me a guy that was 32nd in the league in rushing and then 32nd in the league in rushing, he's going to fix Jonathon Brooks? And he's got Brooks listed as RB34. So I don't know if he has to finish on the season RB34, because I guess that's technically where you're drafting him, or if you want to do average points or split it up, half point for each, but I'll take the over on that.
I think we should split it half point each. That's a way to hit both angles of that.
Yeah, because he's already going to miss the first 4 weeks of the year with PUP. So if you're drafting Brooks, you're acknowledging he's not going to help me in the early portion of the year. And then you're basically saying, well, once he comes back, like, I'm not saying Chuba Hubbard is a fucking world beater, and I'm not saying Miles Sanders is a world beater, but it's probably going to take him 2-3 weeks to even surpass those guys on the depth chart when he gets back. So now we're talking about best case scenario, week 8, he starts rolling. So if you're good with waiting until week 8, I guess, but then once again, even when he does get rolling, he still plays for the fucking Panthers.
Yeah, and it's, first of all, this running back class was touted as a running back class that was bad, right?
Yeah.
Just because I think a lot of people they want the young rookie running back who's going to break out. And just because he was the first running back off the board doesn't mean you have to invest in him in fantasy.
No.
When months ago, everyone was saying how bad this running back class was. So the running back class was.
Well, he doesn't watch college football, remember?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But if the running back class was that bad, why are we investing RB34 in a running back who's injured? Who, yeah, he was running back 1 off the board, but I was told the running back class sucked. So why would I want a running back from this year's rookie class at that price who is going to miss games, who's going to play in a bad offense? Like, there's just a lot of concerns that I have.
Yeah, like just for comparison, so he's got Trey Benson as RB43, who's healthy. Like, Trey Benson should be there week 1. He should get work right away. And James Conner will probably start, but that could be the same scenario to where maybe Benson takes over in the second half of the year. Why is he ranked 9 spots ahead of Benson? I don't know. I don't really understand that. And he's 15 spots ahead of Bucky Irving. and basically 51, 52, 53, 54 are all rookie running backs in his rankings. Like, I think Jonathon Brooks should be down there.
Yep. It's once again, it's like, how can I invest in this guy over? Okay, for example, RB34, or I would honestly just rather spend 2 slots on my roster and take Jerome Ford and Nick Chubb at 39 and 45 and have yourself covered in both ways.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even approach that strategy with Jonathon Brooks, because then you're investing in, would you rather invest in Chuba Hubbard or Miles Sanders?
I don't know.
You can't really cover both of those angles.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's just smarter ways to approach, like, the bottom portion of this. Like, Charbonnet at 41, like, I know he's got Kenneth Walker there, but Charbonnet got a decent amount of touches last year. Like, I just feel like there's other ways to you can attack this. If we're taking guys coming off injuries, J.K. Dobbins at 47, like,
there's so many red flags on this one to me. Like, he didn't just tear his ACL. He tore his ACL in late November. Like, we're way less than a year removed from this thing. Like, he's got to get it all the way to November to just be a year removed. So you got that angle. We're talking about a running back that couldn't beat out Roschon Johnson at Texas. Like, he did not beat out Roschon Johnson at Texas. Like, how good do people think this guy is? I don't want running backs on bad teams. Dave Canales has not shown an ability to run the ball. I mean, it's not like the Panthers' offensive line is like a great unit. Does anybody like the Panthers' offensive line?
I don't.
Like, what are we really expecting here with Brooks? I don't know. And again, maybe Brooks will hit. Maybe Brooks will turn into be a hit, but I think that's more of a 2025 thing, 2026 thing than it is. Like, Tank Bigsby didn't do anything his rookie year. Like, there's a lot of rookie running backs that they don't really do anything their rookie year.
Yep. And a lot of them you get excited for, a lot get overdrafted. Some hit. We had A-Chain last year, and not saying it's impossible to hit as a rookie, but a lot of rookies fall.
I do not think Brooks is better than A-Chain.
No.
In terms of where I had him coming out in college. Either.
Yeah. But point being, a lot of guys who get drafted in these middle rounds just get stashed on the depth chart and don't see that many touches.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to do a full point for these last two, maybe a half point each. They're just kind of depth guys, so that'll be up to you. But we're going to go with Chase Brown and Tyrone Tracy on the honorable mention list. If I'm taking a running back, I think Zach Moss is probably the guy you want. Like, I know that he's the least sexy option. Like, I know nobody's going to get excited to pick Zach Moss, but to me, he should fill that Mixon role, and maybe it'll be 3 yards, 4 yards in a cloud of dust every fucking time. But there's a reason why Mixon finished high last year. I think if Moss just takes on that role, he should finish around the same spot. I mean, I'm not saying he'll be a top 10 back, but I would much rather have Zach Moss over Chase Brown.
To me, the Chase Brown ranking at 29.
Is that where he has him? Holy shit.
Yeah.
But not only does he have him above Zach Moss, but he's 29. So that's basically he's one of the best 32 running backs in the league, you're saying?
Yeah.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
So basically, to me, this ranking, Chase Brown 29, Zach Moss 30. He's got him back to back. That screams. I don't have a single idea which one I want. So we're just gonna put them next to each other. We're gonna go 50%. That's what that screams to me.
Yeah.
So also,
here's the crazier part. Zamir White is one spot higher.
That's what I was gonna say.
Who we're gonna talk about later, but there's no way if I'm on the board and I got a choice, we're going Chase Brown. There's no way.
Yep. Yeah, I 100% agree.
So
we'll take players here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just in this general area, Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
Javonte Williams, Tajay Spears, just from like regardless of situation.
I'd rather Gus Edwards.
Yeah. I don't even love the situation for some of these guys, but the pure talent level, oh my, it's so much higher. You know what I mean?
I'm just there's no way you're going to get me on saying Chase Brown's one of the 32 best running backs in the league. So we'll take the over on that one. I would much rather have Zach Moss if given the option. Like, what did Chase Brown really do besides one screen pass last year? And he had an awful pre-draft process. And this is a good offense to be part of. So I kind of understand the argument. Like, being part of the like, I think the Bengals might win the Super Bowl this year. So being part of that offense is probably a good thing. But man, I don't see that.
Yeah, I've never been a big Chase Brown guy. Even when he was getting hype at when he was coming out of Illinois, didn't really get it, and then he didn't really perform at Senior Bowl, and then hype kind of stopped. And now here we are again with the Chase Brown hype, but I'm not sure what has changed.
I don't either.
To bring that hype back, aside from Joe Mixon not being on the roster. Like, that's literally the only thing that has happened.
Yeah.
To go from low on Chase Brown to high on Chase Brown. I just don't necessarily think that warrants the big change.
And then one more little honorable mention running back before we move on. Tyrone Tracy of the Giants. I understand that his co-host Connor Rogers, like he loves this Tyrone Tracy guy, and he doesn't really have him super high ranked. It's 56. It's not anything crazy, but we're talking about the New York Giants. He's not going to start. He got hurt in camp. Eric Gray's still there. Like, one spot lower is Jordan Mason. If you're giving me the option between like a flyer running back for like, oh shit, like, you know, end of my draft, I'll take the McCaffrey handcuff over a Devin Singletary handcuff with the Giants. And we're talking about a converted wide receiver. Like, I don't think he really knows what he's doing in terms of being a running back yet. So to ask that guy as a rookie to help you, that seems very, very foolish to me.
Yeah. And in this range of players from like 50 down, 51 down, you're basically relying on an injury to get any production. So at that point, I would either want someone who's more likely to get on the field because their starter is more injury prone, like McCaffrey. Love McCaffrey, but he's been hurt in the past, and he's going to get the ball an ungodly number of times, more likely to get hurt. Or a guy with more talent like a Tank Bisbee, Damian Pierce. I'd rather have the stab at Kamani Vidal. If I think the Chargers are going to be running the ball a lot, like, he's got J.K. Dobbins in front of him on the depth chart. Like,
I think you summed it up perfectly. This range is you're hoping for an injury. Well, if Breece Hall goes down, God, I'd love to have Braylon Allen. If James Cook goes down, have a Ray Davis sounds nice to me. If Josh Jacobs go down, Marshawn Lloyd sounds good to me. Like, if Achane goes down, Jalen Wright sounds good to me. Like, if Singletary goes down, it's still Daniel Jones. It's still the New York Giants. It's still a bad offensive line. Like, this team's going to move the ball. Like, do I want the backup of a Giant?
I think here's a great
I'm
way.
not sure he's even the best back. I think Eric Gray might be better than him.
I love Eric Gray. I remember when he was committed to Michigan as a high schooler. That's how long I've liked Eric Gray for. But yeah, I like Eric Gray. I'm with you on that point. But I think a good way for people to approach these is just rank these guys as if they were the starters. Because that's basically what you have to do to get any points out of them. Maybe you can give Mason a bump because CMC is going to get the carries and he's more likely to get hurt. So maybe you prefer Mason. But at this point, you're really injury dependent. So rank them as if they were the starter. If you're looking at situation and talent, which is what you need to be successful as a running back, Tyrone Tracy, I'm not sure, is more talented than very many of these guys that we've talked about. And his situation is definitely worse.
His situation is ass. And even if Singletary goes down, who's to say Eric Gray won't be the starter?
Yep. That's exactly why I'm taking just about any of these guys over Tracy.
And I don't hate Tracy as a prospect. I don't, but he's a converted wide receiver. Like, this thing's going to take some time, even if he does hit.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Next one on the list, we're going to use the same one as last year because apparently he hasn't learned his lesson, and that's DeAndre Swift. Now, he has him higher ranked than he did last year, which he couldn't have been lower on him last year. This year, he's got him as RB24. We'll take the under. So I don't really understand his argument here either. What's this crowded backfield? Like, Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson, like, that's a crowded backfield? You're telling me you paid Swift because you have a crowded backfield? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
We were just talking about rankings for running backs in the 50s. He's got Khalil Herbert at 55. How packed is the backfield? He's got to compete with RB 55. And I think we have also touched on this. I don't know if it was last year. Maybe it was a different stream, but Roschon Johnson doesn't exactly. Oh, no, Roschon Johnson.
He's terrible. He's terrible. I just sent you a link, too. So they're doing the roster cuts. It looks like Khalil Herbert's going to make the team. But, like, he literally was about to get cut. Like, he's on the roster bubble. Like, he's in danger of being released. Like, how can you possibly say this is a crowded backfield? Like, they paid Swift for a reason. Yeah, Khalil Herbert could be on roster bubble. Like, it's not like the Bears are sitting there like, oh no, you know, like, we got to worry about how many touches Swift's getting. I think they paid him for a reason. He clearly finished above where he had him fucking ranked last year. Like, I don't know what he doesn't get about Swift, but Swift is a good football player.
Yeah, and this has been a repeated conversation about Swift. And last year he was in Philly.
And he was healthy.
If it weren't for the tush push, how high is he last year?
Oh, yeah.
I had Swift in a league. I don't think I had him in our slight league. I had him in a different league, though. And I'm watching Eagles games going, I would have won this game by 20 points if Swift could get a carry inside the 5-yard line.
He got sniped on it's a great point because I was even frustrated last year. Like, he got sniped on so many of those tush pushes. Like, he legitimately could have had 10 more touchdowns.
Yep.
And maybe he only has 5 more touchdowns. But if he only has 5 more touchdowns, he's a top 10 running back.
And I'll say this: I don't like the Bears. I've been much lower on the Bears.
I am too,
in comparison to other people in terms of just where they are as a winning football team. But what I don't understand is how everybody can be so high on the Bears and not high on the talented running back they chose to sign. And also, if I remember correctly, he was like one of the first free agents off the board.
Yeah,
it wasn't even like he was like the guy left over who, all right, we need a starting running back. We'll sign Swift because he's there. He was like the first running back domino when all these running backs were moving teams last year. He was out of the whole crowd. They went to Swift, gave him money. Like, I just don't understand that logic of, like, I think we talked about the new car smell earlier in terms of people being too high on players for that reason. I feel like we're also almost getting like a team switch. So there's a level of unknown, and that level of unknown in this scenario is making him lower than he needs to be. Same happened when he went from Detroit to Philly. Now he's going from Philly to Chicago, and now people don't like that unknown, so they can't rank him highly.
If we go back to that Barry post, if we can just pull that back up.
Yep.
He goes on a rant about how, you know, Swift isn't a very efficient runner. Like, he finished blah, 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 fantasy per touch or whatever. Like, okay, so as a rookie, 4.6 yards per carry. Second year, 4.1. Third year, 5.5. Philly last year, 4.6. Like, he's never been below 4. He's never been below 4 yards per carry. Now, the guy you love is Mixon, who's been below 4 yards per carry plenty of times. And not only that, Swift gets work in the receiving game and actually should go up now that he's with the Bears. The Eagles didn't really use their running back in the passing game. But Detroit, he was very involved in the passing game. Detroit, he had 389 yards his last year there, 452 his second to last year there. With the Eagles last year, he only had 214 receiving yards. I think that number is going to go up with the Bears. And even in that one preseason game, Caleb Williams hit Swift for a screen pass that went like 50, 60 yards. I think his receiving numbers are going to go up too. I think they're going to use him. I think they paid him for a reason. So give me the under on the RB24.
Yeah, and we've seen Swift in two different teams. Both teams have used him a little bit differently. Yep. In Detroit, less rushing attempts, more receptions. Then in Philly, more rushing attempts, less receiving attempts. To me, I don't know about you, but to me, that screams we can use this guy in multiple different ways.
Yep.
Sign me up. Multiple different ways to get fantasy points. It's not like it's not like we can only use him as a receiving back. It's not like we can't use him in that at all. You can use him. He's a very versatile back, in my opinion. Leads to more fantasy points, more ways to get involved in an offense. Talent is there as well. So
I don't know if we can add an extra half point onto. There's no way Roschon Johnson is a factor in this offense. Like, just no way. Like, he sucks.
He's got to have Roschon fairly high then, right?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Let's see where he has Roschon ranked. I want to see where he's got those other Bear running backs before we move.
Herbert was 55.
That's not that high. Okay, so he doesn't even have those guys ranked, but I guess it's a crowded backfield. Doesn't have Roschon ranked. Okay, well, we'll keep it moving.
That doesn't make.
How is it a crowded backfield if the guy that you're saying is crowded isn't ranked?
Yeah, I'm not following that logic at all.
Nah,
I just assumed he had Roschon ahead of Khalil Herbert, because that's what everybody does, but Herbert 55 and no Johnson at all.
Okay. Sure. You don't have to scroll very far for the next one. We're going Zamir White. And this breaks one of my golden rules of fantasy of I don't want running backs on bad teams, but I think this is going to be a team where they run the ball and play defense, and it's going to be the Zamir White show. Yes, they brought in Alexander Mattison, but I think we saw enough of Alexander Mattison last year. Like, I think everybody's sick of Alexander Mattison. I don't see Mattison being a pain in the ass here at all. If you want to say he takes away some snaps, maybe when he needs a break, but I think this is going to be the Zamir White show. And the last 4 weeks of the year, if we just pull up the last, I'll do that on my own, but the last 4 weeks of the year for Zamir White, the guy was fucking really good in terms of fantasy. And that was just like getting him acclimated into the process. Like, that was his first opportunity. Josh Jacobs isn't there anymore. His last 4 weeks of the year. So his last 5 weeks of the year, 17 carries, 69 yards, touchdown. Against the Chiefs, 22 carries, 145 yards. Against the Colts, 20 carries, 71 yards. Broncos, 25 carries, 112 yards. Like, I think we saw what's going to happen here. So please give me the under on RB27. I think this is going to be the Zamir White show. Somebody's got to score fantasy points here for the Raiders, and I think they're going to run the fuck out of it.
Yeah, and I don't like the logic here, even when you're just looking at his description.
Oh, his logic's horrible.
53rd among qualified running backs in fantasy points per touch. All right. I don't know how valid of a stat that is.
It's not.
But when you just look at this, isn't the guy who got a ton of touches last year.
No.
Like, of course, his per touch points aren't going to be. It's going to be 53rd because his sample size is smaller. Like, the sample size wasn't big enough to make a determination on the stat that he's trying to use, even if that stat is a valid stat that we should use to project points.
The only numbers you should look at are the numbers where Josh Jacobs was no longer there. Like, the weeks that Josh Jacobs wasn't involved in the offense, because that's what's going to happen this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you're looking at last year to make a determination on this year, and the logic you're using on why you didn't like him from last year doesn't even, it's not even a sample size that would provide, just from
Yeah.
Like a pure statistical sense, it doesn't even make any sense.
Then is then, now is now. Like if you're doing, in fact, I even may be willing to say this: like if Zamir White outscores Joe Mixon, I would not be surprised.
Oh, me neither. And once again, when you're looking at, first of all, Zamir White is talented, right?
If you actually go and watch his love-hate video, maybe we can edit this in or whenever we hand it off to Sophie, but like he literally says, this is not a guy who was thought of as a premier talent. He was a middle round pick. Is like, well, a lot of running backs are middle round picks. And his nickname at Georgia was literally Zeus. And he started over James Cook at Georgia. So let's not go down that road.
Yeah. And what doesn't really make sense to me is when you look at this tier of running backs, like we just talked about Chase Brown at 29. Like you're putting him back to back with Chase Brown.
Yeah.
One guy is going to be the no doubt premier back in the offense. Tony Pollard. Regardless of your opinion on Tony Pollard, he has to worry about Tajay Spears.
Yeah.
To me, same with Jalen Warren. He's going to have to worry about Najee. Like, to me, when I'm drafting in this range and I can get a running back who's talented and the number one back with beyond a shadow of a doubt, or I can take a guy who maybe he's as talented, maybe he's not. But I know there's another running back in there I have to worry about. To me, it's not even a discussion. Like it's not even a single thought.
And I watched that preseason game against the Cowboys. Zamir White had a run. It was like, whoa, he's got some juice now. I think we're ready to go. Like I think this is his time to shine. And no, I don't think anybody should even be slightly concerned about Madison. I think the only concern here is how many receptions is he going to get, which is a fair argument. Like how many receptions is he going to get? But I don't think it's going to be zero. Like, okay, his competition is Dylan Lauba, a white running back from New Hampshire. Like, are we sure he's going to be sniping his points? I don't see it.
Yeah. And if you're not in a PPR, even if you're in a half-point PPR, like, is the running back points, like, from the receptions, it's not going to make or break on Zamir if he has a productive year on the ground and scores rushing touchdowns. Like, it's not going to break you since he's not getting catches. Like,
yeah,
that's not. It's his production for RB27. You're going to be just fine.
We got 7 more to do, and this video's gone super long, so apologies there, but I'll try to keep it moving. Drake London is next on the list. Can we please stop pretending that Drake London's really, really good? Because I don't understand it. Like what evidence do we have to suggest that this is a top 10 wide receiver in the league?
He was drafted in the top 10.
Sure. By the brain dead Falcons. Got it. But this is the same. Like I've said this 100 times with Trubisky now. Like just because the guy was the second pick in the draft doesn't mean he should still have a job in the NFL. I'm not saying Drake London is Trubisky level bad, but like he literally finished as like our wide receiver 45 last year and was healthy. so giving you Cousins instead of Ritter, like that's going to push him into a top 10 wide receiver. I don't get it. I don't think this is even remotely close. Like if he finishes as wide receiver 30, I think that's more likely than wide receiver 10. If he finishes at wide receiver 10, I might jump off a roof because I think it's that impossible.
And just to say this, finishing as a top 10 wide receiver is so much harder than finishing as a top 10 running back.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of backdoor your way into a top 10 running back spot.
Kyron Williams missed like 8 weeks and still finished as a top 10 running back.
Yeah. Like there's a level of when there's a running back up there high, like there's a level of, all right, well, I guess I could see an argument just by default, but with what is so hard with the wideout position. And by putting him, when you just look at the rankings, by putting him at wide receiver 10, you're saying he has to have a better year than Nico Collins, Chris Olave, Devonta Adams, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Watt,
all of them.
Cooper Kupp.
Not just one of those guys. All of them.
All of them. Yeah. Malik Neighbors, Ayuk, Devonta Smith. You can keep going. DK Metcalf, like he has to have a better year than all of those guys. And the guys he's ahead of, like I don't see him jumping at Amar, a Puka Nacua, like a Garrett Wilson. Like it's just such a tough ask for how talented the wide receiver position is.
yeah, I there's not much more for me to add. Like, if he like Mike Evans has had 1,000 yards in every single year of his career. Like, that's consistency. What has Drake London shown? Like, the guy scored 2 touchdowns last year. 2.
Mm-hmm.
2.
And even if the Falcons are better, which who knows if they're going to be, but I feel like a lot of people get the receiver position confused with, well, Drake London's the clear number 1 wide receiver. And someone like, for example, Nico isn't. You know, he's got other targets there, or whoever you want to use. But you still have other guys in that offense. Bijan's going to get his touches. Pitts, this year, I like Pitts more this year than I did previous years. And I liked him previous years, but I think this year he can actually do things in this offense. So, like, I just am not on board with the thought process that, well, since he's the only wide receiver on the team, that means he has to be ranked high in comparison to guys. You know what I mean? Like, there's still other guys eating targets and touches is my point.
So I sent you a link on just fantasy finishes last year. Like, just overall fantasy finishes last year. He finished as wide receiver 41 in a fully healthy season. Like, how are we getting him into the top 10? Like, this is just fantasy finishes last year. Or 42, sorry. 42. He finished as wide receiver 42. He missed 1 week. Week 1, he had 0, and he was healthy.
He's like a boomer bust guy who never booms. Don't you want that on your? He's like Mike Williams, but he never has that 25-point game.
He had 20 less fantasy points than Chris Godwin, who, like, if you had Chris Godwin last year, like, you were never excited to start him.
Yeah. Like, it is insane. Terry McLaurin, who is in
Terry McLaurin's never been a top 15 wide receiver, ever.
Brandon Cooks, for Christ's sake.
I mean, how are we going to pretend that this guy's a top 10 wide receiver? It's crazy. Like, not only is Pickens just way better than him, you have a tough time arguing that, like, he's going to outproduce, like, or positive, he's going to outproduce Waddle. Like, positive? And Waddle's not anywhere close to being ranked in the top 10. I don't think he's even ranked in the top 15.
I'll see where Waddle is. Waddle is 15. On Bears. But once again, that gets
Michael Pittman's our wide receiver 24. I think Pittman's a better player.
Yeah. T. Higgins, wide receiver 27.
Can we just go to where's Zay Flowers at on this fantasy finishes, and then we'll keep moving.
Zay Flowers is 28 on Matt Berry's rankings.
Yeah, where did he finish last year? So
29 last year.
Last year as a rookie Flowers finished as 29. Like, why can't Flowers get better?
And year 2 wide receivers, like, they get better. Like, wide receiver is in a position you can't have. Like, you can have success as a rookie, but then year 2 is usually when you see the bigger boom for a rookie receiver.
I'd take Higgins ahead of London. I would take Rashee Rice ahead of London.
Yeah, so would I. Yeah.
I might even take Cooper ahead of London. I think about it.
I can't. Deshaun Watson is.
Hey, yeah. Cooper was a league winner last year during those Flacco weeks. I'll tell you that. You get Winston out there, you never know.
If Jameis Winston plays, I would be I'd love to have Amari Cooper on my team.
There you go. Like, okay, so like, how are we can go back to the article now. How are we getting London into the top 10? Like, where's the pathway? I just showed you his fantasy finishes where he finished last year. Because he got Cousins now? That's doing it?
Man, I don't follow that.
Like, Jefferson's a top 5 receiver. It don't matter if he's got Cousins.
Yeah. Like, I'm with you. I just can't get behind. No proven track record. expecting that.
I think the more crazy part is he like the last line where it says London came very close to being this year's fantasy ride or die. Like this is let's make sure that this is tracked. This is the guy that he's basically saying this is his ride or die at wide receiver. Like he wants this guy above everybody else because you wouldn't use those words.
What is Drake London's ceiling as like a fancy wide receiver? Like, is it anything more than what Mike Williams was with the Chargers? Like, if Drake London hits his like highest range of outcomes as a fantasy wide receiver, is it going to be anything more than a boomer bust guy who every once in a while comes down with some jump balls and you had a good week that week?
I mean, that's kind of what he is. He's a jump ball wide receiver. He doesn't get open. He has no separation skills. You're basically banking on him scoring a lot of touchdowns, which to this point, Jahan Dotson has way more touchdowns than him.
It's crazy.
Jahan Dotson has 11 career touchdown receptions. Drake London had 2 last year. You're basically saying that Drake London has to score a lot of touchdowns, which he hasn't done to this point.
Yep.
All right. Crazy. This one's an honorable mention. We can skim through this one. DeMarcus Robinson. He's got on his love list. I should probably look at where he has him ranked because maybe we can just skip that one entirely. Okay, so he doesn't have DeMarcus. Oh, he's got DeMarcus Robinson, wide receiver 79. So we can just skip that one. That's who cares about that.
How much do you love him? I mean, geez.
Yeah, true. How much do you love him?
The wide receivers that are better, but I love this guy.
Okay.
He's got Andre Ivosius ranked ahead of him, but he loves him.
Yeah, he's got DeMarcus Robinson on the love list though. Maybe we can make it a half point. I don't know. We'll keep moving though. Our next topic. Let's just play that video that I sent. Ben Sinnott. Let's do him next. And again, I don't have Bowers on my OnlyFans list. I do not. But you're like making me forced to put him on.
Who is a must-have choice for you in your drafts? Matthew, give me a bold prediction on this rookie class.
All right.
Call your shot with the Dollarita.
There we go. Listen, calling my shot, I like to call my Dollarita. But I will say, here's my shot. This is my bold prediction. I'm going pretty bold here. Ben Sinnott,
I know him.
Rookie tight end of the Washington Commanders, has a better fantasy season this year than the highly touted Brock Bowers.
I like
better
it.
Quarterback situation, less target competition. Ben Sinnott over Brock Bowers in fantasy points his rookie year.
$7 Dollarita on the Dollarita scale for that one? Boldness?
Yeah, that's pretty bold. Yeah,
$7 Dollarita.
8.5.
Yeah, we're good. By the way, if we just go to his fantasy rankings, he has Bowers ranked ahead of him, which I don't know how you can possibly say that Sinnott's going to outscore him. I feel like we have to post his rankings too, because
I'll pull up the rankings.
Because so he has Bowers at tight end 12. And he does not have Sinnott ranked.
Not ranked at all?
Like, how can you go on national TV and say Ben Sinnott's going to outscore Ben Sinnott's going to outscore Brock Bowers and then not rank him?
He's got his backup over him. That's insane. That's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, he doesn't have him ranked, right? He's not on the list. Yeah.
Nope. But he's got
he's got the backup of the Ravens on there. He's got he's got the backup tight end for the Bills on there. He's got the backup tight end for the Raiders. But Ben Sinnott, who's going to outscore Brock Bowers, is not on his rankings. Which just shows how contradictory this fucking guy is. So I don't know what we even want to do with that, but can we just go with Sinnott won't outscore Brock Bowers, but he doesn't have it ranked that way, so I don't even know.
It is a good. He's put a little bit of a dilemma here.
Yeah, I know. You're the referee, so this is your call.
All right. Ben Sinnott.
I don't have Bowers on my OnlyFans list, by the way. I do not, but I just felt like that has to be brought up.
All right. How? Yeah, we've got him on video saying it.
Yep.
Let's just say,
and nothing's changed. Like these guys didn't get hurt. Like nobody went to jail. Like there's no major event that would have changed that.
Yeah. Let's just follow his. Let's just say you're gonna fade the bold take. You got Bowers over Sinnott. We'll just have that one as because he didn't rank them. So
yeah.
We could just do the over/under on his ranking on Sinnott, but he didn't rank them, so it makes it a little difficult.
Yeah.
That's what I would have rather had do, but it's not our fault he didn't rank a guy that he thought was going to finish better than the tight end. What do you have, 12?
Yeah.
That's on him.
And Bowers is on his hate list, by the way, but he has him higher.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what to do with that.
So, and admittedly, gives you a little bit of an edge. Just the straight up Bowers over Sinnott. However,
that's fine, but then don't run your mouth on TV and say that's your bold take.
It's his fault for the logical inconsistency. So
correct.
We'll leave it at that.
Fair enough. And we can just kind of scroll through this, but all the camp reports, by the way, we don't even need to show this, but Ben Sinnott, he's the tight end 3 on the depth chart right now, and all the camp reports indicate that he can't get open.
Who'd have saw that one coming?
Yeah, I don't know. All right, next on the list, we got 3 more. George Pickens. He should be the first guy on this hate list. I would like to request a bonus point if Pickens outscores London, because that's how I would have it ranked. Not only will Pickens outscore Drake London, but this is the thing that I think this is the worst argument of all time. The Arthur Smith factor. Don't forget, Drake London never finished as a top 40 wide receiver in points per game under Smith, as we showed in the London section. I just don't understand how that's Arthur Smith's fault. And I'm not an Arthur Smith defender. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say Arthur Smith is a fantastic offensive coordinator. But how can anyone say that, well, he's never finished as wide receiver 40, so now Pickens is going to suck? And that's just the Drake London problem. Like, those two things don't translate.
Arthur Smith has become quite the scapegoat.
Yes, 100%.
And once again, I'm with you. That's not to say that I'm
not saying he's blameless.
Yeah.
Like, we can't say Arthur Smith was 100% the problem with the 7-10 Falcons.
Yeah.
Actually, he might have actually won too many games.
Yeah. I probably would have picked the under if you told me they were winning over under 7 games for the Falcons. I probably would have took the
with
under.
Ritter. I mean, he won 7 games with Ritter.
Yeah. So, like you said, it's just weird that it's almost like these Atlanta players are getting a by default jump because Smith is gone.
Yeah.
When Pickens is a big play receiver. Like
100%.
How many slants did he take to the house? Like, just pure slant, and he takes it to the house.
And not only that, like, last year, his quarterbacks were Pickett, Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph. I don't give a shit who starts for the Steelers. He's got an upgrade.
Yeah.
Big upgrade.
Yeah.
Like,
someone who can competently throw the ball, at least kind of.
How many starts did Kenny Pickett? He had like 12 starts and he barely threw for over 2,000 yards or something like that. And then Trubisky's a total fucking disaster. His best outputs were with Mason Rudolph last year, who is now the backup for the Titans. Like, whoever is throwing him the ball, it's going to be better than it was last year. And last year, he totally outscored London.
And, like, the argument that Arthur Smith is going to come in and run the ball, so his points are going to go down. They were running the ball last year. So it's not was a heavy pass offense that's now converting to a heavy run offense. It's just it's still going to be there'll be more play action passes, and if anything, I think their offense will be better. Because regardless of what you think of Arthur Smith, I think he's also an upgrade over Matt Canada. Yeah. Ooh. Does Matt Canada even have a job right now? I was going to ask.
I don't think he does.
At least Arthur Smith could get another job.
Yeah. I don't think anybody hired Matt Canada. Did anybody hire him?
Wiki description says recently served as the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So nobody hired him.
To me, that screams currently unemployed.
Yeah. So I'm not saying Arthur Smith is blameless, and I've been on the rant that I don't love Arthur Smith either. But he's an upgrade and totally got a job when Matt Canada got fired and nobody wanted Matt Canada. I think that tells you a lot. So let's not just bury Arthur Smith here. Like, he's fine. Like, yes, he's a FedEx. He got his job because his dad runs FedEx. We get that. But man, like, I just don't think this logic makes any fucking sense.
Yep.
Like, how is it Arthur Smith's fault that Drake London never finished as the top 40 wide receiver?
Because Drake London is taken in the top. That's why.
And how about the Brandon Ayuk line? Like, okay. And this column didn't come out that long ago, by the way. I've waited as long as we possibly could. Like, this column, I think it's only like 4 or 5 days old, something like that. Ayuk's still not here. Like, I don't think we got to worry about Ayuk. Who knows what's going on with Ayuk, but until he's on the Steelers roster, I think we worry about that then.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, it's weird to be like, they're never going to throw the ball, so they're going to go trade for Ayuk. That doesn't make any sense either.
No.
Going to openly talk about how no chance they throw the ball a lot, but Ayuk's on his way. Like, that, to me, that just doesn't add up either. And that just won't happen, but I just struggle to follow that portion of the logic.
So, give me the under on wide receiver 32.
And a bonus point if Pickens outscores London.
Please. Because nobody will have that fucking ranked, but that's how I would put it.
Mm-hmm.
2 more. Jordan Addison. So he's got him at wide receiver 48. I just, like, so maybe he gets suspended for this DUI. I don't know. Maybe if we want to do points per game or overall finish, I don't really care. But 48's low. Like, 48's really low. Jordan Addison's probably the second best wide receiver in that draft class from last year. Or that's how I had it ranked. We'll see if it turns out that way. But 48?
We talked about the Vikings a little bit earlier. But one of the things we talked about was they're going to throw the ball. And, like,
fuck them.
They are going to, like, they have a smart offensive mind running this offense. Like, and Addison has talent. Like, to me, there's just, like, I'm not, like, a low on a guy in that scenario. I'm not saying Darnold is a world beater, but he's better than Dobbs.
Nick Mullins.
Yeah, Nick Mullins, Dobbs, whoever they were running out there last year at the end of the year after the Kirk Achilles. Like, I'm with you. The talent and opportunity for targets, all taken over on wide receiver 48.
The 2 names above him are Ladd McConkey and Jamison Williams, a rookie, and Williams hasn't done anything yet. And the 2 names below him are Romeo Dobbs and Josh Palmer. I don't know. Maybe he gets suspended, and I don't know how we want to totally score this because maybe he misses 3 weeks, but during the weeks he's there, he'll outscore wide receiver 48. Like, that's really low. Yeah.
I'd say we can come up with the score for this one at the end of the year, just based on whether he gets suspended or not. Because
we know that much. It's the same thing with Rashid Rice. We know something's coming. We don't really know when. It could even happen next year. Like, maybe he gets suspended in 2025. But
yeah,
I think we'll take our chances here.
Yep. And for example, one of the things that I like about Addison, I know exactly where he sits in that offense.
Yep.
Especially with Hockenson out for at least a period of time. Who knows where Dobbs sits in that Packers offense that has 8 receivers they like to use?
Yeah.
Who knows where Josh Palmer is going to fall in the Chargers offense? Like, I just think there's less mystery. You know, Cortland Sutton with the Broncos, I like Sutton, but my God, what's going on in Denver with the quarterback situation? Like, there's just a lot less mystery with some of these players.
And his life should be way easier with Jefferson on the team. Like,
yeah.
If Jefferson's getting the double teams, we got one-on-one coverage for Addison. I feel good enough that he'll get his looks.
Yep, I agree.
And then the last one, this guy didn't make his hate list, but he may as well should have. We can use it as a tiebreaker, however you want to do it. This one's kind of where I said I wasn't cherry picking shit. This one I'm cherry picking just to close things out. He's got Nick Chubb as running back 45, and I just think that's so disrespectful. Like I just think that's so disrespectful. He may as well be on his fucking hate list.
Yeah, it's pretty low.
And that's another conversation. He's going to be on the PUP list. Do we want to do average points per game? Do we want to do total fantasy finishes? Half point for each? I don't know how you want to do it, but if somebody else is going to bet against Nick Chubb, be my guest. Running back 45?
Mm-hmm.
Like if Saquon Barkley lost both of his arms and they were amputated, he would be above 45.
And one of the things that we've talked about a lot today is age. And I don't love taking Chubb, who's 28, who's coming off the injuries that he's had in his career. Yeah. However, when you're paying the price of RB48, 45, my bad. It's a much different discussion.
Yeah.
Like just the cost of at 45, he's not your end of the bench guy. You have to spend more than a couple bucks for him, but you're probably spending less than $10, around $10.
So the person above him on the list is Tyler Algier, and the person right below him on his list is Jaleel McLaughlin.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's
like if I'm in that portion of the draft, and my option is like Algier, McLaughlin, J.K. Dobbins, or Chubb. Is that even a conversation?
And you probably already had. It's not like you're going to depend on him for your running back.
Yeah, exactly.
At that point anymore. You should already have 2 or 3 running backs when you're in the draft. So you can afford to take a little bit of a risk.
And when Chubb comes back, if he's your third running back, you're dangerous. He gets rolling again, and he's like your third or fourth running back. You're dangerous in the second half of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Which I have Chubb on my team, so I feel like this one should at least count.
Yeah. And what's like the worst outcome? He's not the same. You miss.
Okay, you blew RB 45.
Yeah.
You got to cut somebody for a bye week kicker anyway.
Yeah, like it's
you got to cut somebody for a bye week tight end anyway.
Yeah, it's not like the end of the world to your season. It's about risk reward.
Yeah. That's
risk that can win you a league, and then the low outcome is
I'm not sure it's even a risk. Like he's so criminally ranked to where like Jaleel McLaughlin's going to win your league. Like we know what Tyler Algier is. Like if I'm getting Chubb in that ranking, I don't think there even is a risk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, I like Chubb at 45 as well.
Love that.
I was having a much harder time with Chubb. You texted me about Chubb when you were doing your draft, and you were talking about, do I take him or Montgomery? And
that's where I would rank Chubb, like in that Montgomery area.
Yeah, Montgomery's 20 on berries. Swift 24. I have a much harder time taking Chubb over those guys, but 45, and you're telling me I got to pick between him and McLaughlin, like
exactly.
It's no longer a discussion.
Yeah, that's the list. That's all of them. So we'll see how we do. Hopefully, we repeat the same performance as last year. Is if we kill him again, do you think he'll even mention it? He'll pretend it didn't happen. But you would hope that somebody has to mention. We can close out of this shit now, but you would hope that somebody has to mention this if we do this again.
You'd hope, but the problem is other people have the same rankings, so other people can't.
Oh, so I went over it in the quarterback video that I put out. Everybody's got the same fucking list. Everybody got the same rankings. They all do the same exact bullshit. So there's no surprise that if I kill him again, they won't say anything.
Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate, but is it a surprise? Unfortunately.
No. All right. That's the Matthew Berry Challenge. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back at the end of the year to review everything.